If you have seen Shogun, you already know this face, the old patient lord named Toranaga, who wins not with the sword but by waiting. His real name was Tokugawa Ieyasu, and the show leaves out the worst part of his story. In 1579, his own overlord forced him to do something almost no father survives. He ordered his wife put to death. Then he ordered his own eldest son to cut open his stomach for a crime the boy may never have committed. Ieyasu did not refuse. He could not refuse, and he never spoke of it again. This is the real Toranaga, the man behind 2.5 centuries of peace and the price he paid to get there. To understand that moment, go back 40 years before he was even called Ieyasu. He was born Matsudaira Takechiyo, heir to a small, weak clan squeezed between two much larger neighbors. And weak clans in that century survived by handing over their children. At 5 years old, he was sent away as a hostage, first nearly sold to one enemy by his own escort, then actually delivered to another, the Imagawa clan, who held him for the next 12 years. He grew up in another family's castle, a guarantee against his own father's good behavior, worth killing the moment his side stepped out of line. He was not tortured. He was not starved. He was something quieter, and in its own way, harder. A child who understood, before he understood anything else, that his life belonged to someone else, and that the only way to keep it was to give no one a reason to end it. Historians still argue about how much of the patient Ieyasu of legend was born there in 12 years of watching his own value be calculated by other men. What is certain is this: the boy who would one day be told to sacrifice his own son had already learned, as a son himself, exactly what it felt like to be a piece on someone else's board. By 1579, the hostage boy was long gone. Ieyasu was a battle-tested ally of Oda Nobunaga, the warlord who was devouring Japan one province at a time. And alliance with a man like Nobunaga came with no room for independence. That year, word reached Nobunaga that Ieyasu's wife, Lady Tsukiyama, and his eldest son, Nobuyasu, were secretly plotting with the enemy Takeda clan. The evidence was thin. Much of it came from a single accusation made by Nobuyasu's own wife, who happened to be Nobunaga's daughter. It did not matter. Nobunaga sent word. Deal with it. Ieyasu had his wife killed quietly, away from the castle. Then he did the harder thing. He ordered his own son, 21 years old, to commit seppuku, to open his own stomach with a blade, in the old correct way, so that at least his death would look like honor and not execution. The retainer sent to finish the ritual, to deliver the killing stroke once the young man had cut himself, was a hardened Tokugawa spearman named Hattori Hanzo. We have told what happened next in another story. Hanzo raised the blade and could not bring it down. Someone else finished it. Nobuyasu died. Ieyasu did not attend. For the rest of his life, Ieyasu almost never spoke of that year. When later writers built the legend of the wise, patient Toranaga, this is the part they learned to leave out, not because it was unknown, but because it did not fit the man they wanted him to be. That was not the only humiliation Ieyasu survived. It was simply the quietest one. 7 years earlier, in 1572, the most dangerous warlord in Japan, Takeda Shingen, marched an army toward Ieyasu's territory. Ieyasu, young and proud, rode out to meet him in open battle at a place called Mikatagahara, and was annihilated. His army broke. Men who had sworn to die for him died running, cut down from behind. Ieyasu himself fled for his life back to his own castle. So frightened, later chroniclers wrote, that he soiled himself in the saddle. He survived only because a handful of retainers sacrificed themselves at the gate to buy him time. According to a story his own clan preserved for generations, Ieyasu ordered a portrait painted of his own face from that night, haggard, hollow-eyed, humiliated, and kept it near him for the rest of his life. Not as a trophy, as a warning to himself never to feel that certain again. Add to this the year, even earlier, when his own vassals rose up in a religious rebellion and very nearly killed him in his own province, a revolt so dangerous that even his closest retainers had to choose between their lord and their faith. By the time Nobunaga forced him to kill his own family in 1579, Ieyasu had already been broken twice, in public and in private, and had survived both. Nobunaga was assassinated 3 years later, in 1582. The story of Ieyasu's desperate escape through the mountains of Iga, guided by that same Hattori Hanzo, is its own tale. What matters here is what Ieyasu did after he survived it. Nothing dramatic. Power in Japan passed to Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the peasant-born general who finished uniting the country. And Ieyasu, now one of the most powerful lords alive, made a choice that looked, to everyone watching, like surrender. He submitted to Hideyoshi. When Hideyoshi effectively exiled him to the Kanto region in the east, handing him a swampy, undeveloped backwater called Edo, far from the old centers of power, Ieyasu did not protest. He moved his entire domain there and started building canals, roads, castle walls. A city from mud that would one day be called Tokyo. For years he served a rival who had, in effect, taken everything and given him a swamp in return, and he built it into the single most productive territory in Japan, all while appearing to want nothing more. When Hideyoshi finally died in 1598, Ieyasu was the only man left with the army, the wealth, and the patience to take what came next. 2 years later, at the Battle of Sekigahara, he won it all in a single day. 3 years after that, the emperor named him shogun. He was 57 years old. He had waited his entire adult life, one humiliation at a time. Ieyasu ruled only 2 more years as shogun before handing the title to his son and retiring, though he kept real power until his death in 1616. What he had built held. The Tokugawa family ruled Japan for the next 250 years, the longest period of internal peace the country had ever known. Centuries later, when a novelist needed a character to embody that peace and the cost of reaching it, he wrote Toranaga, old, watchful, endlessly patient, a man who wins by outlasting everyone else at the table. It is a good character. It is also a softened one. The show gives you the patience. It does not give you where the patience came from. A 5-year-old handed over as a hostage, a young lord who broke and ran at Mikatagahara, a father who ordered his own son's death because refusing was not a door that was open to him, and then said nothing about it for the next 37 years. Ieyasu did not win Japan through wisdom alone. He won it by surviving what should have broken him again and again until he was the last man standing who remembered how. That is a harder story than the one on screen. It may also be the more useful one. If this story was worth your time, subscribe. Forgotten Japan tells the stories that the famous tales of samurai and shoguns leave out.